Good morning and welcome to the Eskrima podcast. My name is Jason Inai and I am an Inayan Eskrimador. This is episode 7 and I just wanted to do a quick short one today. It's a Saturday, getting ready to do the black belt training that we do here in Los Gatos, California for our guys that are going through the program for the youth martial arts. And I wanted to talk about the drowning metaphor. So we use a lot of different metaphors, or rather I should say I use a lot of different metaphors to teach, to organize my training as far as how I would instruct someone, to create hierarchy of importance for curriculum. And one of them that I use is called the drowning metaphor. The drowning metaphor is this idea that if I'm going to teach you how to swim, right, because we don't want you to drown, right, we work on treading water first. And that, with all swimming lessons, starts with holding on to the edge, kicking your feet in the water, and becoming comfortable with being in the water. And the metaphor really is an idea of relating to what it's like to be in a fight. Because when you get in a fight, and you've never been in a fight, and you're also unprepared for the fight, it feels like drowning, right? So the idea of treading water is where we work on simpler defenses, quick and easy, actionable things to do, right? We also use it as a hierarchy for looking at or analyzing an answer to a self-defense or fight situation. You know, a lot of people will say, well, I can just run. And so the question we ask is, well, how often do you run? Because if you want to tread water, you actually need to train and practice treading water so that it comes natural to you, right? Well, most people will say, well, I could just run. I said, that's really cool. That's a good idea. That is a self-defense technique. You're right. So how often do you practice running, right? I mean, how fast can you run a mile? Can you do that in 6 minutes? Can you do it in 5 minutes? Can you do it in 4 minutes? Because you're supposed to be running fast away. And then the next question is, okay, so you're going to run away and you know how to run. How often do you practice running and turning? Because you're going to have to turn around corners and go upstairs or go through a door. Do you practice moving quickly through doorways, opening and closing the door, or just opening the door, right? So there's a whole slew of questions we have to ask ourselves as far as like what we do for running to make running a viable self-defense technique, right? So with the drowning metaphor, we go back to the idea of holding on to the edge and kicking our feet. And this is very much like what training is like. You're not actually fighting, right? You're not actually swimming. You're practicing to fight. You're practicing to swim. So the training has to be designed so that there's an escalation of when do I get into the deep water? And what does that look like for the training, right? The other side of it too is that if we're going to teach something that would be classified as treading water, if you will, what does that look like? So a lot of our techniques that we teach, or that I teach, and drills and exercises that we work off this idea of I got to be able to quickly do this, and I got to survive. So we start there. My father really wanted for a practitioner in the system, our family system, to be able to defend themselves as quickly as possible. And I think his goal was a handful of months, right, at the time. My goal is 8 lessons. 8 lessons, really the first lesson, you should walk away with something actionable that you could use in self-defense. And this is what shapes the way we teach, how I organize what we call the first lesson, second lesson, third lesson, all that, right? As far as how someone is going to be able to defend themselves right away. Will it look like Eskrima, which is, the main thing for Filipino martial arts, the main thing, at least in the United system of Eskrima, right? No, it won't. It won't, because it's self-defense. It doesn't have to. We're looking at self-defense. In fact, the structure of the system as it's taught now is, first, I want to make sure that you can defend yourself. Then I want to develop you as a practitioner of Filipino martial arts. And then as you mature into that, you become really a practitioner of the United system of Eskrima. So the onlooker who's watching this person do martial arts or do training watches them evolve as an individual, because training is a metamorphosis. It's a transformation. You come from not being able to tread water to being a great swimmer, right? And this transformation leads you to the point where someone who's watching say, oh, that person knows how to defend themselves. Oh, that person must be practicing Filipino martial arts. It looks like Filipino martial arts. They got sticks and knives. They do the empty hand. Doesn't look like forms. Doesn't look like karate. To the initiated or the educated would go, that guy over there, he must be practicing the United system of Eskrima because they move like that. To, oh, that person's an Eskrimador. So not everybody that practices Eskrima is considered an Eskrimador. It's a little bit more different. I remember stories of my father telling, watching people fight, and then how the old men would respond if they saw a younger man fighting. And it was always a feather in your cap, if you will, when the old monarch would say, okay, you stop fighting, Eskrimador. That's a thing. With my father, it was that he would say that to us when we were coming up through the ranks, if he really respected or was proud of what you were doing. And if you did it well and it looked good, he'd go, oh, artiste, because it looked beautiful. And finally, that's really what we're trying to do in this drowning metaphor. You're tread the water, be able to swim, find shore, right? The one that I don't talk to people about is the ability to save another, right? That's a lifeguard, right? And then there's no need to go back to shore, right? I call those the sharks, right? And we look at the training, whether it's self-defense or it's, a complex technique or movement or drill or exercise, as this transition from merely being able to survive a fight or an attack to being able to easily defend yourself, feel comfortable, but, get into some shock. The story I told about Charlie getting attacked by a homeless guy, being able to defend someone with a knife that attacked him from behind, and all these things, which, there's a small amount of luck involved in that, but also a lot of investment in training and confidence and just reaction, right? That's the ability to find the edge of the pool. You've been there. And then, being able to just stay in there and thrive in the fight, to find yourself in that situation and become aware of yourself on a deeper level, is what at least I have for myself and my advanced students, the hallmark of an Eskrimador. And so I look at that, and I look at the drowning metaphor as a way of developing students, but also a way of guiding the way that I'm going to teach and what I'm teaching. Most of my students, most people that come in through the martial arts are definitely going to be able to defend themselves with the way that the United System of Eskrima has always been organized and continues to be organized. It's just that we've accelerated in contrast to the way that my father was teaching. We've accelerated that time frame as we improve it, because it's a living art. The United System of Eskrima is meant to be a living art. It's not supposed to be calcified, stopped, and this is the way we do it, and this is the way that we always do it. There are some guardrails in there. You can't just, throw in some, wushu into it and call it the United System of Eskrima. My father had very strict guidance for me as the student that he actually mentored into becoming the head of the system. And so we work with that. He'd say, you can do this, but you can't do that. You can do that, you can't do this. So drowning metaphor is my metaphor, but I utilize it as a way of guiding the students, guiding myself, having the gurus have guardrails on themselves to developing and teaching students. This idea that I'm going to teach you how to defend yourself. Everyone that comes through the system needs to be able to defend themselves. My father went to the point and says, I don't want students of the United System of Eskrima to go out there and not be able to defend themselves. First of all, we're not doing our job. And second of all, it looks really bad for the system. I mean, these guys can't even defend themselves. This is not useful, right? We don't want to turn out a black belt who can't, avoid a punch. I remember someone had invited me to a black belt test. I said, they said, Cyril, I want you to teach my student, we're going to test him for a black belt, and so I want you to test him. I'm like, are you sure? And he goes, yeah, no. Yeah, he's ready. I'm going, all right. And I looked at the guy and I said, all right, I'm going to punch you in the face. I'm going to do it as hard and fast as I can. Don't let me. And the guy goes, yes, sir. And he bows, right? And he's got his brown belt on because he's a karate kempo guy. So it's brown belt, black belt, right? For the belt progression. And I punch him in the face. And the look of surprise on him, like, I can't believe it. He did it. He actually hit me in the face. I didn't hit him hard enough to... Actually, no, it did bloody his lip. But I didn't, bust his face open. I didn't hit him that hard. But I wanted to prepare him with the idea that I'm going to hit you hard and fast. And I did. For my students, I would hope that if someone says, I'm going to punch you in the face, that they do something. This person didn't do anything, right? So the litmus test for what we would call a black sash or a black belt is showing everyone else that, yes, you can defend yourself, and that was Eskrima, right? That you use to defend yourself. That's that level. A black belt is that level of now you're ready to train. Not now you're an expert, but now you're ready to train, right? And so we organize that, out of the curriculum and the ranking structure that my dad had created just before he passed. He put out this SASH curriculum. It didn't get a lot of traction from his other students, but I immediately wanted to adopt it because it was his. He's the head of the system. He says, I want to do it this way. And teachers say, student, do. That's what you do. And, out of that whole sequence, out of the idea that I want my students to be able to defend themselves, I want students that learn the United System of Eskrima to defend themselves, the structure for the drowning metaphor, kind of coalesced. And then I used the drowning metaphor as a way of really analyzing our curriculum progression, analyzing what I'm teaching, and analyzing the progress of the student. Can they defend themselves? That's the first thing. Is it what they're doing when they're training? Does it look like Filipino martial arts? As they become more proficient, does it look like the Inayan system of Eskrima? Does it look like Inayan Eskrima, right? And when they fight, not self-defense, not reflex training, are they an Eskrimador? So this drowning metaphor is being very useful, and the students know where they are in the training, and that's really what curriculum is for. Professor Moreau, has been always a very good supporter. If you don't know who he is, he's a great person, great martial artist. I don't know that there is a martial art that he hasn't seen or done. He learned under my father, Kudina Mono. He learned under me, Kudina Damano. But really, I learned from him in terms of just efficacy of the arts, broaden my horizon. He's part of that Hawaiian martial arts organization. I'm currently the president of the Kilimona Martial Arts Association, and he's the elder in that organization. And he's always said, the thing about Nine is it's effective, right? And that's what we look for. He's the one that helped flesh out the Sikaron that we teach within the United System of Eskrima. It's not required curriculum, but I do teach it. It starts with my father. He taught me a lot of low line kicking and tactics, and it expanded with working with Professor Moreau during the Inline Training Organization Kudina Damano program that they were all doing back in the day in the 90s. And we continued on into the early 2000s before they completed that program. And, out of that whole set of sequences, and then my father passing, I started looking at the training and saying, okay, we want it to be effective, and we want people to be able to defend themselves first. Now, the difference is my dad would go from you're able to defend yourself to moving towards a guru. Everyone would be able to fight. I wouldn't necessarily, and honestly, he didn't really give the honorific of Inayan Escrimador to anybody, really, and not in writing anyways, right? So, moving forward with the system and doing everything, the drowning metaphor was just an easy way to teach, right? It was just an easy way to teach the system and organize it. And I hope that it's useful for you, whether you are in the Uniting Training Organization, and I definitely hope that you are part of the ITO. But if you're not, that's okay too, right? Hopefully this expands your horizon. But the Uniting Training Organization's structure is an evolution that I use the drowning metaphor as well as many other metaphors as an encapsulation of this much wider idea of developing people into martial artists. My dad would go straight to guru. I'm looking to turn you from ability to defend yourself, practitioner of martial arts, practitioner of Filipino martial arts, practitioner of the United System of Eskrima, Escrimador, which means that you can fight, right? Inayan Escrimador, which means that you can fight well. And then guru, which means that you can teach another person to do that. Anyways, that's the episode. A short one today. You have a great weekend. I'll probably talk to you tomorrow. I'm definitely going to talk to you tomorrow. But at the same time, I can't wait to see you on the training floor.